Almighty and eternal God, who for the firmer foundation of our faith allowed your holy apostle Thomas to doubt the resurrection of your Son, till word and sight convinced him. Grant us, who have not seen, that we may believe, and so confess Jesus Christ as our God, Lord and God, who is alive and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, one God, now and forever. A reading from the Gospel according to John. But Thomas, who is called the Twin, one of the 12, was not with them when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see the marks of the nails in his hands, and put my fingers in the marks of the nails, and my side in his hand, I will not believe." A week later his disciples were again in the house, and Thomas was with them. Although the doors were shut, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your fingers here, and see my hands. Reach out your hand, and put it on my side. Do not doubt, but believe." Thomas answered him, "My Lord and my God." Jesus said to him, "Have you believed because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen, yet have come to believe." Today we remember Thomas. And normally when we speak about Thomas, it's the doubting Thomas of the Gospel we just had read, who will not believe Jesus is resurrected until he is able to touch the hands and touch his side and actually see him physically. And John uses that story as a compliment or a encouragement to those who come after Thomas. Blessed are those who have not seen yet believe, i.e. everyone else who comes after the first generation of the church. But today I'd like to think about another aspect of Thomas. Thomas is often proclaimed as the apostle to India, and Indian churches often claim Thomas as their founder. In fact, there's a part of the Anglican Communion called the Thomas Church, which means the St. Thomas Church, from South India. And one of the things about that is that there's actually a fair amount of historic evidence that Christianity did get to India very, very early. And one of the things we have to, if we're going to understand that, have to sort of reimagine our maps we carry in our head. Most of us carry a map with Europe and Rome at sort of the center of that, or Italy at the center of the Mediterranean, when we think of the Roman world. But in fact, the Roman world was centered not in Rome geographically, it was centered around Israel and Egypt. And the Roman Empire extended to what is now Iran, and they knew what was going on in Iran, and they also knew on the other side it was India. But also from the southern part of Egypt, every year a convoy of ships went to what is now near Goa in the spring, and then came back in the winter following the winds. So there was a great trade connection between the Roman Empire, Egypt, and Palestine, Israel, and India. So it's not surprising that Christianity spread to India very, very early. We know by at least 100 Christianity was there and has been there ever since, an indigenous Christianity. And I think that's one of the problems when we come to think about history because of our Western orientation. We think of things emanating from Rome. We think of the Roman Empire spreading into England, and we think of that sort of vision. But if we actually want to understand the early Christian history, we have to remember, look at the wider map, which is actually very hard to do, but look at where Israel is compared to in the geography and the center and where the center of the Roman Empire was. So just a reminder that Christianity spread very early on, and also began to change as it came into the different cultures very early on. First it adopted the Greek language for the Roman Empire, but it had also continued to use Aramaic or Syriac, which was close to the language, a dialect of the language Jesus was spoken. And there was a Syriac church that had its own traditions and tended to carry in more of its theology, not in written theology, philosophical theology, but in hymns and poems. I know we've discovered a lot about that Christianity recently. It was actually translated and sort of made available by the Victorians, particularly those in Oxford. But they just didn't know what to do with it because it was so strange, the theology. And now we also know about the Christianity that spread throughout what is today sort of the Arab countries and into Persia, and actually eventually into China. And again, a Christianity that had a very different emphasis, a very different understanding. And so therefore it's really quite an important thing that we've learned, is that Christianity is a far more flexible and far more varied religion than many people used to think. And as we as Christians try and understand those traditions, we find ourselves enriched by them. So Thomas in many ways is a symbol not of just his doubting, but also a symbol of the richness of Christianity and its ability to translate itself into different cultures while holding on to the kernel of the gospel.